Hello, welcome to Experience League Live. Great to have you with us. I'm Sandra Hausman and I will be your host today. Today's session is all about in-app messaging, and I have two amazing guests with me. But before I ask them to join me, I have a quick word from our sponsor. No, joking. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with Experience League, I just want to quickly explain what it is since you're on YouTube at the moment, if you're watching us live. Experience League is the one-stop shop for everything self-help. It is where you can find the product documentation, how-to videos, tutorials, and courses for the Adobe applications. And of course, you will also be able to find the recording of this Experience League live event there posted shortly after we finished. And the previous events as well, of course. And last but not least, if you would like to share your knowledge or just discuss topics with your peers and experts from Adobe, visit the Experience League community forums. And for all of this, simply go to experienceleague.adobe.com. Get started, a bit of housekeeping. This session is for you. So feel free to ask questions in the chat. We will try to address them during our session. As a follow-up to this session, we're also offering the first Journey Optimizer community Q&A coffee break, which is happening next Wednesday, May 31st. And that's a chat where you can ask us any additional questions you might have or anything that we weren't able to answer today. And we'll be there and you can, ask us anything, but ask us anything today as well. But now, without further ado, let me welcome my guests. First, joining us from Lehigh, Utah, Chetan Prasad. Welcome, Chetan.
Thanks, Sandra. Great to be here.
Great to have you. I will get Peter in as well, my second guest, joining us from beautiful Santa Cruz, California, Peter Franzen. Hello.
Hey,
Hey.
Sandra.
Hey, Pete, great to have you both. So, Chetan, let me start with you. I would like our viewers to get to know you guys. So, I'm going to start with something unwork related or not work related. Chetan, you
Hmm.
told me that you have basically tried every candy bar with chocolate there is. Which one is your favorite?
Yeah, great question, Sandra. I have tried most candy bars that are out there because I've traveled around a bunch. Um, but I would say my favorite is a pretty vanilla choice, which is going to be the Snickers candy bar.
And what is the worst candy bar you've come across ever? The one you would tell us do not touch.
Yeah, probably Crackle. I think the only question that comes to mind is why? Why does it exist? It's waxy. Doesn't taste all that good, right? It's just really hard to pin down the texture of it. A crackle milkshake, it's a different thing, but a crackle candy bar, probably at the bottom of my list.
Okay, I will keep my hands away from that. I have not tried that one yet. Pete, have you ever experienced a Crackle candy bar?
Yeah, I have, and I'm going to have to disagree with Chetan's assessment there, but
Ooh.
that's for another time.
Okay. Jathan, let's talk a bit of shop. You're group product manager at Adobe, and I know you've been in the mobile team for ever since I've known you. What do you do? What does your team do? And we'll be talking in-app, so how are you involved in the whole product?
Yeah, I've been at Adobe now coming up on 8 years, and I've been a product manager at Adobe all my stay here. And I mostly work on mobile and web related messaging tech. So a lot of the mobile SDKs and web SDKs that you may have used, those are product pieces that I own at Adobe. Mobile engagement, web engagement, being able to do push messaging, in-app messaging, web-based messaging, all of that is something that I manage at Adobe. It's really exciting for me to watch our customers use our product in ways that, as product managers, you kind of build for a few use cases that you think customers are going to use, and our customers come back and totally surprise us. And so that has been exciting and a fascinating part of my career to just watch the diversity of how customers take our tech and get use cases and value out of it.
What was one of the most surprising things that you heard a customer tell you that you never expected? Do you have one on the top of your head?
Oh, you're putting me on the
Something where
spot
like,
here.
wow, I didn't see that
Yeah.
coming.
Um, yeah, a lot of the tech that we've built has really been because a customer has used our tech in a way that we didn't intend for it when we initially built it. So in-app messaging is really an offshoot of some customers that have tried to build or use personalization services in order to do something in the mobile app. And we're talking about a decade or so ago. And Pete, I'm sure we'll talk more about this, where we looked at that and said, oh, you know what? We can make this a lot easier. We can actually provide you with a channel that does this so that you don't have to think about authoring and you don't have to think about getting it working on a mobile app, so on and so forth. So there's just been a lot of examples like that, in-app messaging being a great example of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so to our viewers, let us know what you need, right? That's really important. And yeah, let me uh, thanks, Jathan. Let me move to Pete. Pete, I heard you quit the tech industry after your first internship to become an auto mechanic. And I mean, now you're here as a principal
I
scientist
did.
at Adobe, not fixing cars, at least not during work hours. What made you change your mind? And what made you leave the tech industry in the first
Um,
place?
I like to say that I had my midlife crisis at 19. Um, I decided I wanted to try something new. I wanted to try something, more physical. And I did that. And I pretty rapidly learned that while auto mechanics made a great hobby, um, as a full time job, it was probably not exactly what I was looking for. So I decided to move it back to a hobby and came back to the tech industry and have been here ever since.
Lucky for us and lucky for Adobe for sure. Uh, Um, yeah, we'll talk shop with you as well. Honestly, can I call you Mr. Mobile? I mean, I can call Chathan Mr. Mobile as well. I mean, he's been very extremely involved in anything mobile here at Adobe. But Pete, I hear you've been basically involved in all the mobile solutions, at least on the in the experience area that Adobe has ever built. So digital experience mobile, Pete, that's you. Tell us what are you doing now?
So now I'm primarily in charge of architecture for all things mobile within DX. So, all of the things Chaitin owns, if it touches mobile or, emergent technologies in that kind of mobile and personal computing space, I'm involved in making sure that it is capable of doing all of those things that customers find, interesting and different to do with it.
Fantastic. I knew you guys
Yeah,
are the
and
right
Sandra, it's,
people for
it's
the show
probably
today.
helpful to
Um,
open up
yeah,
the definition of mobile a little bit. So a few years ago, mobile really
I
was
just wanted
mobile
to ask
phones and
you.
apps
Yes.
on mobile phones. Yeah, and Pete's really, just to put Pete on the spot a little bit, Pete's really thinking about kind of our extensive customer base, and what their needs are beyond mobile devices. So this really includes things like running apps on TVs or on set-top boxes or on IoT devices. So if I kind of speak for you a little bit, Pete, Pete's really thinking about how we bring a lot of what Adobe has to offer in the experience management space on devices and surfaces that we don't necessarily think about as web or mobile, but they're really kind of beyond and immersion, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
and I
you're
think also it's going to be really interesting where we see that go, right? AR and all of these things that are getting closer and closer on that horizon. We're also thinking about those, so we'll be ready when they get as much adoption in the future.
Yeah, it's an exciting space, and I mean we're moving towards the future, right? So, but today we want to talk about in-app, and Chethan, I'll just throw this out to you. Can you tell our viewers a bit more? I'm sure everybody has apps and has worked with apps and has had some interaction with in-app messaging. But from a marketer's perspective, can you enlighten us a bit about what kind of use cases do marketers address through in-app? Give us a bit
Sure.
of background. Why we need in-app?
Yeah, in-app messaging, if you haven't heard what it is, it really is what it sounds like, as in it is messaging in the context of a user using the app. And the use cases can range all the way from serving up content to showing things like coach marks or onboarding guides or tooltips or carousels, prompt priming messages, so on and so forth. And so in-app messaging is really kind of a catch-all category, if you will, of being able to show an experience in the context of an end user using a mobile app experience from a brand. And so with in-app messaging, especially the flavor that Adobe brings to it, our take on in-app messaging is really bringing to bear all of the deep richness that we have in terms of data and insights that we have, the content that we're able to create, with design being a heavy backing in terms of how we deliver content, and also the notion of personalization at scale. In-app messaging for us is really the culmination of all of these three foundational capabilities into a mobile channel that our end users can find differentiating experiences, if you will, on their branded apps. And so in-app messaging has a lot that I'm sure we've all seen in the frequent apps that we use. But in terms of what Adobe does with it is we want to make sure we harness all the goodness that we have inside of our ecosystem, make that really easy and consumable for our marketers so that they can create compelling experiences inside of a mobile app.
I've heard the notion of mobile app. It's inbound as opposed to outbound.
That's
Pete,
right.
let me ask you, what is the difference? What is inbound? What is outbound? How do we differentiate? And follow-up question, how are they architecturally different as well?
Yeah, uh, great question, Sandra. So, from inbound and outbound, it's kind of like, I like to think about it as the birthday party type of scenario, right? With a birthday party, you're going to send out invitations to people, right, digitally or even physically, and that's what we would consider to be the outbound experience, right? You're trying to reach people directly and to bring them to the party. But when they arrive at the party, the inbound experience is more, when we talk about in-app, we're more talking about, the balloons on the street corner to guide them to the place you want them to go, right? Or maybe it's the happy birthday sign on the wall inside when you come in. And so it's that kind of differentiation between they've already showed up versus we want to get them to show up. So once they've already showed up, then we can provide that in context messaging, to help them achieve whatever their goal is within your application. From an architectural standpoint, it's a different problem set, right? When you're talking about outbound communications, you're typically talking about very high volume in a very short period of time. We focus on delivering all of those email messages or push notifications or things like that, rapidly in a personalized fashion. Inbound is more about contextual. So the architecture there shifts to being able to understand what the end user is doing in the moment, and then using all of those other things that we would typically use in outbound, the personalization, the profile, the things we understand about the user, to ensure that we have a message that's compelling to them in the context of the place where they're at.
So in the context of an application, push would be outbound, whereas in-app would be inbound, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, and how do we differentiate what we do to what other vendors do? I mean, there are tons of competitors out there and other vendors who offer in-app messaging. How does Adobe and Journey Optimizer differentiate to those?
Yeah, from a
I
product
think that there's
perspective.
several different.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, Chip.
go ahead, Pete.
No, you.
Okay.
I'll
So
follow
from a
up.
product perspective, I talked a little bit about how the Adobe difference is really that it's not just a channel that hangs by itself. It's the ability for us to bring personalization connected with data and insights, and the ability to deliver content inside the in-app message channel that our marketers have kind of created, curated, and hydrated inside of our ecosystem. But beyond that, and you'll kind of see this in the demo that I do, there's part of the demo, the significant portion of our demo will be focused on being able to light up an in-app message to an audience with a given schedule for a given campaign type activity, if you will. As in, I want to show an in-app message to somebody in context because they're doing something. But where Adobe really shines is that we're also able to light up that channel in the context of other channels with our journey orchestration product as part of Journey Optimizer. As in, you can bring inbound channels and outbound channels onto the same canvas so that you can light things up, right, for a successful birthday party. And Pete's speaking my language here because I have little kids, and the birthday party is a key moment in the lives of my kids. And so having both inbound and outbound tactics working simultaneously is what makes for a successful birthday party. And so it goes for a marketing campaign as well. You want to target both the outbound nature of how consumers might react to your marketing messaging, but also the inbound nature of how it appeals to somebody that enters a space that they want to be messaged to. And so Adobe is able to kind of uniquely piece together inbound, outbound together on one channel, be able to light that up in context, be able to things, controls to the marketers to be able to get the outcomes that they want from those campaigns, and then all the inside, the content, the personalization along with that. That's really something that's hyper unique to Adobe in the market, if you will.
Yeah, and from an architectural standpoint, that really comes down to ensuring that we keep all of those details and all of that stuff organized, and then we're fast enough on both the client and the server side to ensure that that entire flow remains contiguous, and that the end user is kept in that context of the journey.
So basically, you're also saying we scale, right?
Yep, exactly.
And what I'm also picking up, Chetan, what you said, basically, just to bring some buzzwords out here, I would think omnichannel orchestration. That's what I'm hearing. We have the constant, the user has the same experience across the brand, no matter how they contact the brand, be it via email or the brand contacts them, be it via outbound push, as well as inbound when they're in the app. It's one experience, and we have the knowledge, or Journey Optimizer has the knowledge about how the user interacted and can adapt accordingly, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, I think we've talked enough. Chetan, show us the product. Show us how to set up in-app messaging. And
Should we get into it? Come.
Yes, let's get
Sounds
into
good.
it.
Let me share my screen here. All right. How does my screen share look to you guys? Can you see my browser? And I have a little phone hanging out to the right.
Yes, we can see your browser and your phone. Yeah, if you could move your browser window a bit more to the right for now, maybe. The navigation is a bit cut off. Not that it's that important, but at least it's my right. It looks better, yes.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
So before I kind of get into the demo, let me give you some orientation. If you haven't logged into the Experience Cloud before, this is kind of what the home screen looks like. You see all of the apps you're entitled to that you can get in. And today we're gonna focus heavily on the Journey Optimizer portion, given that in-app messaging is a feature and functionality available as part of that product. So let me navigate there. As soon as I get into Journey Optimizer, there's a variety of things happening. Sandra, can you see my left navigation bar here?
Yes, I can. It's just slightly cut off, but we can see everything.
Okay, no worries.
Perfect.
But when you log in, we have a ton of screens on this in documentation and other Experience League videos. You'll see that we have a variety of things, a variety of artifacts that the marketer can leverage in order to manage how they create journeys, how they create campaigns, how they create offers, how they start with playbooks, if you will, to kind of discover what use cases are possible. There's a variety of sections to manage content, data, profile segments, so on and so forth. But today, for the purposes of our demo, I'm going to focus very much on the in-app message channel. There's a lot to talk about in the in-app message channel. There's personalization, there's experimentation, there's reporting. There's just a lot besides kind of creating an in-app message and lighting it up. And we're not going to have time to get into all of those facets, if you will. So what I'm going to focus on today is really kind of creating a single in-app message, showing you how that works, showing you a few different iterations of an in-app message, and how some of our customers use it in real life. We have some features that we've kind of developed alongside in-app messaging to make it easier to test, to validate, to make sure that you're getting the experience right before you actually get it out live. So I'm going to see how many of those things I'm able to hit in the time that we have. And so as I do that, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'm sure one of us will get back to you. Or product documentation is always a great place to find more information in terms of what I'm doing and what the capabilities are. So let me begin here. I'm in the landing page of Journey Optimizer. I'm going to navigate to campaigns on my left nav. And I'm using an internal test sandbox. There's a lot of noise here. If you have access to one of these, you probably are not going to have as much activity as I have in here. But kind of the things to look at here is this is going to look like a pretty standard campaign management interface, where I have the names of my campaign and an inventory list. There's a notion of status and channels and tags associated with it. And then there's a bunch of metadata that you can manage in terms of start and end dates, who modified it, what status they might be in, so on and so forth. I'm going to begin this quick demo, and I'll have a few different demos. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a quick in-app message. In the notion of a campaign that I'm creating here, there's a few different things that are happening. You see a campaign type where we've got the notion of being able to schedule a campaign and get it out live based on a time duration or a manual start-stop. And then we also have the notion of creating API-triggered campaigns. API-triggered campaigns, think of them basically as the ability to kind of create headless campaigns or a flavor of headless campaigns. We're not going to get into too much of those. For now, I'll just kind of go into the schedule workflow. And then down here, I have a menu of options available to me in terms of all of the actions or channels that Adobe Journey Optimizer supports. This is kind of a limited list. We have more coming between now and end of the year. I've got things like direct mail, email, in-app message, push, SMS, web, so on and so forth. Before I keep going, let me pause here. Sandra, Pete, are you able to see the text on my screen? Is it legible enough?
Could you zoom in a bit? I think
Sure.
it's, I mean, for the viewers, go ahead and expand the screen. I think you probably see more. We have a slightly different view. It's a bit smaller for us.
I look a little better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so let me begin with checking the box in the in-app message. I have a little demo app over here to the side of my screen. In this demo app, for the purposes of our demo, there's not much happening here. It's just kind of an Adobe app that I quickly whipped up. It's got 3 tabs here at the bottom. It's got a home tab, it's got a news tab, and it's got a store tab. The app in and of itself isn't important. This is really a proxy for your own apps. But what I wanted to do is just kind of show you a few elements of how an experience might pop inside of an app. So this app is my Adobe demo app. So let me go ahead and select that here from this list. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit create. So that creates our campaign, the container of our campaign. To begin with, I can give it some metadata about properties of my campaign, if there's a name that I want to give it. So let me do EXL live campaign, number 1. I can give it some description. If I had the right access, I can put in access management labels. I can add some tags. I'm not going to mess with any of that today. There's a few other pieces that I'd like to show you really quick, which is you can target an app message to a specific audience. For now, I'm going to go with all app users. There's the notion of being able to add multiple actions. And also you'll see here down here that we have a call out for content experimentation. So if I wanted to test variants on content or message copy, I would be clicking on it, create experiment, and kind of launching off an experiment that way. And then there's the notion of triggers. And we'll get into this in just a little bit. But in a lot of what in-app messaging has to do is not only showing the experience to the right people, but also picking the right moment as to when you want to show that message. So triggers is the section that's going to help us with that. And then finally, I have kind of here the notion of campaign start and campaign end. which is basically I can set this campaign to fire between now and 30 days from now, or I can manually start it and manually stop it. So for the purposes of the demo today, I'm going to start it manually and end it manually. Yeah. Let me quit an app here and start building the in-app message. I can start building my in-app message by hitting edit content. And I get an in-app message builder view that shows up here. This view is going to look pretty standard. If you've used in-app messaging from other vendors or even from Adobe, a lot of the form and functionality here is pretty straightforward and simple to use, if you will. We've got a few different message layout types. We have the notion of a full screen takeover. We have a modal takeover. We have the notion of a banner. And you can also upload custom HTML and shape that to the container of your choice. For the purposes of my demo, I'm going to start with a simple modal. A modal basically is an in-app message that still partially shows what's happening under the modal. You can lock that or you can let that be editable. But the notion is there's something happening behind the in-app message. You want that to be in there in the look and feel. It's part of how you want the modal to, just like a modal or a pop-up on a website. And so you might use a modal for a specific messaging tactic that you might be planning for. We have a few options over here where I can choose a close button, where I can do a simple circle or a custom image. I'm going to go with a simple. And then I can swap out this media URL placeholder that I have here with a custom image. So let me go find the Adobe logo really quick. Adobe logo, let me search for, oops. I'm having an issue with my cookie settings. I'm stealing Adobe logo. I hope that's okay.
That's okay.
Okay, let me copy the image address and let me post it over here. Okay, I'm not a designer, so I am going to apologize in advance if my in-app messages don't look that good. But hopefully this kind of communicates general principles of how an in-app message might be built. And then I'll just kind of put in some header text over here saying, welcome to Adobe session on in-app. Great, and then some description here. And then kind of the next step here is I can give the button a name, say okay. And that's about all I need for my basic in-app message. Now, you see a few other buttons over here that I'll kind of get into here in just a second, but I'll kind of start with this toggle over here, which says advanced formatting. For most customers and most customer use cases, a simple in-app message that I've kind of shown you with an image or an image optional with header text, with body text, that's probably going to be what most of our customers use. But oftentimes you actually want to control, you know what, I want to have multiple buttons, or I want to change what the button text looks like, or I want to change colors, or I want to change the container size itself. For those kinds of use cases, we also have kind of an advanced formatting tab over here. As soon as I unlock it, you'll notice that I have a bunch more options here where I can say, you know what, I want to reduce the image width a little bit and the image height a little bit. You can kind of do things like that. You can change fonts. So I can go font size higher, so make this more readable for you. Things like that. I can add maybe another button over here and say, okay, and cancel, give these different actions, if you will. So I can kind of mess around with these until I get my in-app message just right. So we've got the beginnings of our in-app message. I haven't changed anything else. Remember, I'm targeting this for all users. And let me scroll down here a little bit. So I have all app users over here. So anybody that comes into the app will see this. And then down here, as soon as application launch event happens, they're going to see this in-app message. We'll talk about those in just a second. But the notion of what I'm beginning to show you here is that we want to place this in-app message when something happens in the course of my app usage. And for now, I'm going to go with launch. So as soon as I pull up the app, I want to see the in-app message come up. So let me hit review to activate. This is going to take a second, and let me go ahead and activate. So activation probably takes about a minute or so. Let me pause here. Sandra, Pete, anything you guys want to add to what I've shown? Everything looks clear from your guys' standpoint? Yeah, so far so good?
It's clear.
Okay.
I mean, there are a
Yep,
couple of
looking
things, but
good.
I think you might want to, you might touch on them. The review to activate and then activate. I mean, there's a step in between. I'm assuming that I can, test the content
Yeah,
or
that's a good
things like
point.
that.
I was going to get into it. Looks like we're live already, but yes, it's exactly the point. As soon as you hit review to activate, you're kind of given a summary screen just so you can double check, make sure you got your content right, your audience right, your action set right, your schedules right, all of that. And then we kind of have the notion of once it goes live, then you can kind of view reporting alongside the content that was served. So let me see if this actually works. Let me go into my Adobe demo app over here, and we have the in-app message that pops. So that's how
Hey,
simple in-app
nice.
messaging can be. It's really a matter of getting some content in, targeting the right audience, getting the right place inside of the app figured out in terms of triggers. And then as soon as you do that, the in-app message is ready to fire, and you can see it really takes under a minute really to kind of get it out there. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit, kind of show you a different demo. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm actually going to, let me stop this campaign so I don't keep getting that. Let me stop this campaign. And let me go back to my stopped campaign. Let me go find my stopped campaign over here. Pete, one of the things that I'd love for you to explain to our audience is the notion of triggers. So I kind of mentioned that triggers is really kind of the marketer being able to find the right spot in terms of when they want to show the in-app message. Can you talk a little bit about our triggering technology and why we call it triggers and why we use app events, if you will, to do this?
Yeah, 100%. So the mobile SDKs, when you implement, the Adobe mobile SDKs in your application, as part of that implementation, you're going to be generating all kinds of different events that live on the client side, right? Just by installing the mobile SDK, we're automatically going to pick up some events for you, right? Things like app launches or app closes or, all of these other various things that happen in the context of the application on the user's device. And then you have the ability to go in and mod implementation and add additional points, when you're collecting various information about the user's app usage or interacting with the SDK in any way. And the really cool thing about those different implementation details is while they do, collect information and do other things, they also all automatically become potential trigger points for these in-app messages. So instead of having, unique places within the app where you're forced to put these in-app messages, you can now put these in-app messages anywhere you have any of those implementation details happening. So those client-side triggers that run entirely on the device are always there. They're always waiting for those actions or a series of actions to take place. So we know that this is the perfect time that you've designed for that in-app message to, show up and ensure that it maybe doesn't interrupt another workflow that the user's already doing, or that it shows up in context, to get your intended outcome.
Yeah. So Pete,
Nice.
I think
So
a lot of customers
basically,
that
but I'm
I've
hearing
spoken with
full
have kind of
flexibility. Sorry.
indicated. Sorry, Sandra. A lot of customers have kind of indicated, hey, we want in-app
I was
messages to fire in real time, right? Maybe there's a location geofence entry happening or an exit happening. Or a user spends 5 minutes in the app and then I want to show something to them, or they get to the checkout page, or maybe they've abandoned the checkout page and gone to a different screen. And I want to use those quick real-time triggers to kind of show an in-app message to get them to go back, to get them on task, or whatever it might be. So it sounds like in-app messaging can kind of be used for all of those use cases. And then correct me if I'm wrong, all of this client-side decisioning, if you will, also lets us surface in-app messages, even if the device is offline. So if I'm in a subway or if I'm in an area that I don't have, the right bandwidth or whatever, the application can still have those in-app messages ready to go, and the messages can kind of show in an offline or low bandwidth fashion, so that I still get all the messaging that I need from the brand in context as I'm using the app. Is that kind of a fair statement to make?
Correct, correct. As long as the device is connected, at some point in the past when it had internet connectivity, we actually download all of the live in-app messages at that point, and we cache them on the device so that they are ready immediately, right? Without this need for, triggering and then loading something or like you said, on a subway or an airplane, or any place that the user may be using the app. Or even like you said, in a low bandwidth scenario, they're always ready, they're always there, just waiting for that trigger to make sure that they show up in context um, for the end user.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sandra, I cut you off. Please go ahead.
No, that's absolutely fine. I was just saying that you have full flexibility with an app to design it the way you need it specifically. We don't basically box you in and say these are the areas that you can modify. We leave it open. We give you all the power that you need to design your in-app messaging and your app basically the way you need it to work for your customers specifically. And I personally think just the fact that this works when you're offline is really good. I mean, this is so important nowadays. I mean, we have a lot of bandwidth, but we still don't have full coverage nowadays yet.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, makes sense. So Pete, thank you for kind of going into those triggers portion of the in-app message construct. What I'd like to do is kind of switch gears here a little bit and actually show how we can use triggers. So if I go back into my app, hopefully the campaign stopped. I'm not getting it. Oh, it's still cached. Let's see if I can get it to. Okay, great. I'm not getting it anymore. So I have a few tabs over here. I have home, I have news, and I have store. And instead of showing an in-app message on the home screen or when the app launches, I want to place an in-app message right when I get to the news tab of my app. And specifically, I want to show an in-app message that my agency, my fictional agency, has created. So I want to show you how that might look like inside of this ecosystem that AJO or Journey Optimizer has for in-app messaging. So let me see if I can kind of walk you through that example. So I'm going to go begin a new campaign. So let me create a new campaign over here. You kind of saw the properties before, you saw the action list before. Let me select my Adobe demo app over here. Oops. There we go. And hit create. And I have a few HTML templates pre-created that I'm going to kind of pop in and out of. So let me go down here. I'm not going to change the campaign name. That's auto-generated for me. I'm going to leave audience as is. And I'm going to go straight away into editing content. When I hit edit content, last time I showed you the notion of full screen, modal, banner. But this time I'm going to go with a custom. And this is how a lot of our customers do in-app messaging as well, where they have pre-created pop-ups or HTML-based in-app messages that already have brand look and feel. It's approved by legal, it's approved by marketing, it's built by an agency. It's just easier for them to use it. And so I've got some of those just for the purposes of our demo. So I'm going to hit import. I don't know if you can see this modal, but if you can see this modal, I'm navigating to a folder on my desktop where I have kind of these two pre-created in-app message HTML templates. I'm going to go ahead and open one, and you'll see that it's a gentleman reading a book. And basically, I want to pop a 40th anniversary sale, if you will, in-app message inside of my news app, news tab right here, directing them to the store. So ultimately, I'm going to place these in-app messages all over the place to kind of say, hey, have you checked out this other tab? Have you seen this other piece of content? Have you noticed that we're having a sale? Basically ways to kind of get them to focus on workflows and experiences that you want them to look at. So
Nathan, a quick question.
Yes, go ahead, Sandra.
You can also place it, I mean, you're doing it on the main screens now, but you could specifically also place it on a button. If they click into a certain news item or certain part on the page, then you can fire it as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, wherever you want to, and there's data tags firing, as Pete mentioned. In-app messages can be placed exactly in the point that you want them to show up. But before I actually go there, I have a little problem with my in-app message. The kind of the bottom of this in-app message is a little weird. It's hanging out a little too much. I want the bottom to kind of match the top. And we've added a nifty little feature down here, and my resolution's a little screwed up, so I apologize. I kind of need to scroll down here. But I have a preview on device button over here. So we added this so you could test out what your in-app message looks like in real time on your device. And so the way this works is it uses our assurance tech. And Pete, if you wouldn't mind explaining that in just a second, but let me show you what this is. If I hit preview on device over here, this is powered by our assurance capabilities where you can connect a mobile app with Adobe in real time, and you can start inspecting and introspecting data and experiences that are being served by Adobe on your mobile app. And so let me quickly connect my app. So I need to give it a bit here, which is Adobe Demo, which is the base URL for my app. And as soon as I do that, the app here will generate a QR code that if I had a physical device, I could scan it and pair my device here like that. Or I can just copy a link here because I'm doing everything via my simulator. I'll copy this link, go to my browser and open this deep link. Paste and go. Yeah, so open this page in Adobe Demo. And this puts up our assurance overlay on top of it, 5550, connect, and let me hit done. And as soon as I hit done, you'll see that the experience pops in real life, in real time. And just like on the web UI over here on the left, I can see that the bottom is extending a little more than I would like. So I can come over here, turn on advanced formatting, go into settings, come down to customize size, and then reduce the height down from 60%, maybe down to 2%, and see if that does a better job. So let me dismiss this, hit preview on device. That's starting to look better. Let me take it down to 57%, get it just right. Okay. Now let me hit
I think
preview on
it changes
device.
in real time.
And yeah, go ahead, Sandra, sorry.
Ethan, I thought I saw it changing in real time on the device, or was it just wishful thinking? Before you hit preview on device again, does that happen? Or do I need to refresh basically?
Yeah, every time you hit preview on device, we push this piece of content to the app so you can see what it looks like in real time. If you'll notice on my phone, I have a little AI icon that shows up. That tells you we have kind of a valid active assurance session happening as part of this whole testing workflow. Looks like I hit a, if I can get it back here. There we go. So this assurance overlay tells me that I'm connected to Adobe, and if there's things that are injected into the app, or if the app is sending things back to Adobe, all of that can be introspected in this little panel, this log panel over here. But let me cancel and hit preview on device again, so you can see what that preview experience looks like. So I have the experience created just right. And before I go through the process of placing this in exactly the spot that I want, Pete, can you talk a little bit about how this all works under the covers in terms of how we're doing this with assurance and how we're able to kind of push an experience to a mobile device?
Yeah, 100%. So the assurance tooling that we've developed allows you to securely connect an individual device to our tooling at any time. And so that could be even in a production version of your app and a development version of your app. And it allows marketers and developers and pretty much anybody to come in and actually connect and get these experiences where you can, in real time, test out in-app messages. You can introspect. We have a whole assurance UI that allows you to introspect the internals of what the SDK is doing at that time. I know Chetan's going to get into that a little bit more when we talk about complex triggers. And it creates this side channel communications directly between that individual device and the rest of our web UI. And so that allows you to do all kinds of really cool stuff. You can do, these previews, and you can also, really see what's going on, and even go as far as to understand potential problems that may exist within the implementation before you go live, or, you can test things before you send them live, just like Chetan's showing here.
And this is iOS, so we have that both for iOS and Android, I assume.
Yep.
And also
is
web
platform.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
And also for web. Yep.
And is this the setup for iOS and Android? Is it the same? I mean, the screen that I have now, have you set it up for both with this, or is there something different you need to do if you want to set it up for Android as well? I mean, the
It's the same experience, right? So yeah, the general in-app message, as well as the assurance handshake and all of that is the same experience across platforms.
Perfect. So
Thanks,
Chethan,
Pete. So
we
let
only
me
have
get rid
about
of
10
this image.
minutes, so I know you have a lot more to show.
Yeah, let me get out of this in-app message. So my in-app message looks good. I've got the top and bottom somewhat aligned. I like what the in-app message looks like. The next thing that I need to do is, let me disconnect. The next thing that I need to do is actually place it into the news tab, or when the news tab loads, that's where I want to place the in-app message. So let me X out of my app over here, and let me go back here. My design looks good. I'm not going to touch the design anymore. Let me get out of this campaign and the edit content workflow of the campaign. And let me go down here. I'm going to leave audience as all app users, as in I still want every app user who comes in and goes to the news tab to get this experience. I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to go down to edit triggers. Let me click on that. You'll notice that by default, we're picking the launch event as the trigger for when the in-app should show. I'm gonna get out of that and hit add condition. And you'll notice that when I hit select an event, you'll see kind of a list of things that you can choose from in addition to the launch event that I previously had in there. I have application lifecycle events such as install, upgrades, crash. There's events that are pulling in from our places geolocation service, where if you wanted to trigger an in-app message based on somebody entering a geofence or exiting a geofence, those are triggers that we support. And then we also have core tracking and platform tracking events, as in if you are sending an event or a data tag to Adobe Experience Platform for the purposes of collecting data. This could be metrics, this could be behavioral metrics, this could be usage metrics, whatever it might be. Whatever data that you might have that's going from the app into our Experience Platform, all of those pieces of data are fair use in terms of how you can trigger something, an experience, if you will. So let me pick send data to platform. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit and condition over here. I want to pick a specific event that's going from the device. And if you had a little more time, I'd kind of show you what events I was sending. But every time somebody tabs over from home and news and store, I'm sending events as part of that, as part of when you switch from one tab to another. And I want to pick the specific event, the store event. And when the user hits store, that's when I want to kind of pop the in-app message. You'll notice that I don't really have anything here that's pre-populating. So I kind of need to guess or ask my developer what's being sent in before I can put it in here. But we've also kind of added assurance, a nifty assurance workflow again here, where I can connect to the device in real time. So let me show you that. Let me hit connect device. Again, you'll kind of see the similar modal pop up, hit start. I'm going to create a new session over here, put in my base URL as Adobe demo, and hit next. Okay, I get a QR code or a link. I'll copy this, paste it to my Safari browser, paste and go, and hit open. Okay, and
it's also worth noting here that if you were doing this with a physical device right outside of a demo like this is even easier because it's just scan that QR code and go.
Thanks, Pete. And so now if I go back to add condition and choose XDM value, you'll notice that it's still blank. But as I go from home to store and come back here and hit add event type, or sorry, XDM value, you'll notice that now I have a dropdown and it populates with tab ID, which is perfect because tab ID is the key that I want. And I want to make sure that it matches a specific tab ID. And so not the store tab ID, but I actually want the news tab ID. So let me get out of here, hit news, and then come back in here and see if news popped in. There it is. So I don't need to worry about the syntax. I don't need to ask my developer. I can just kind of make this connection, pick the right event. Okay, I have this the way I want. And I'm gonna hit done. Okay, so now I'm going to show that in-app message that you saw only when that specific event goes to platform where the tab ID equals news. Okay, so let me go ahead and hit review to activate. Okay, that looks good. Let me get out of the app. Let me close out assurance here. Okay, and then hit activate. As this is activating, some other pieces that I haven't shown you yet that I was going to get into if we had a little more time was the notion of reporting. So as soon as you start interacting with the in-app message, it can be dismisses, it can be clicks, it can be clicks. If you have multiple buttons, they might all be tagged separately. All of those events are making it into our reporting engine in real time, and those events are available to you in near real time for you to start looking at and seeing how they're affecting your campaign performance. So my campaign just went live. So moment of truth. Let me go back here to Adobe Demo. Okay, sign number one, that's really good. I don't see a message popping in the home section of my app. If I go to the store section, it's not popping there either. That's great. Okay, if I hit news, there's my in-app message. So that's kind of the workflow for how you get an in-app message popping in the exact spot. And our customers go crazy. They invent all kinds of crazy in-app messages. They find right places to put them in, and really make them flow in the exact way that they want their app users to engage with them with. So let me pause there. Sandra, do you have any thoughts on this? Do you want me to show anything that I missed here?
So we have one question from our audience. Sriraj, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, was asking, what are the metrics that can be captured on in-app notifications?
Yeah, good question. Our documentation has a full list, but in general, you're able to capture out of the box. Adobe is able to send in dismisses and clicks. So if you had interaction events with those buttons or with gestures, so if you were to swipe up, swipe down, swipe left, swipe right, all of those can be tagged inside of the UI so that you can capture out of the box metrics with that. In addition to that, all of the in-app messages that we have here also have what we call native bridges, if you will, exposed via JavaScript. So if you wanted to expose specific events that you wanted to tag, these can be impression events, these can be specific events that somebody mouses over or whatever on a particular portion of the in-app message. All of those can also be tagged, but they require a little more implementation help before they can be done.
Yeah, especially in a custom HTML type of in-app message, anything you could do in HTML and JavaScript, you can 100% do that.
Nice. I personally
I'm gonna
like,
stop
I
sharing
haven't
here
seen
so we can get back to our faces.
the Yes. I personally love the fact that it's so easy nowadays for a marketer to set this up, that you do not have to ask your developer, and that you basically can try it out while you have your app and say, okay, I want to do it on this click. And then the system actually catches, which activities are available. I really love that. I haven't seen that yet. I know that's pretty new. And I'm just blown away. It makes it so much easier. In the past, setting up in-app and other tools really required you to be very close to your developers and ask them, okay, what do I have to pull, which fields do I have to pull, etc. This is really, really cool. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I know that you haven't touched on, and I just don't have enough time, is experimentation, where you can really
Right.
test the in-app message, and as well as using it in journeys, right? That's also an option. Jason, can you maybe
That's
we
right.
still have 1-2 minutes? Can you talk about maybe how you can use the in-app in omnichannel orchestration and in the journeys?
Yeah, Sandra, if I'm not mistaken, you have an upcoming session on experimentation, correct?
Yes, we
So
do.
maybe we
We
can work
do.
in-app into it. But
Yeah.
so in-app messaging, just like you saw in the campaign construct, where you're able to target a segment, you're able to target an audience, set up rules, edit content, and then deliver the in-app message, we also have the same construct available on our journey canvas, where you can go create a journey. And if you don't know what a journey is, or you haven't heard that phrase before, that term before, feel free to look at our documentation, other videos that we have. But it's the notion of being able to drag an in-app message node on the canvas and able to light it up or disqualify it based on what's happening on the broader journey. So a typical journey could be, I'm sending a user an email. And if they don't look at that email, or if they look at that email within 3 days, then disqualify the in-app message. or if they've looked at the in-app message, then don't send them the email. So you can kind of do complex rule-based journeys to where you can really control how you want outbound to play nice along with inbound channel messages. And so the result of that is you get marketers that are able to provide highly curated, in context phones. All of us get a ton of email, all of us get a ton of messaging from brands, and we get really tired. And I think we really notice when brands are sensitive to how they message us. And so we provide a lot of the control that they can do with our journey orchestration canvas, bring all these channels in side by side, figure out what rules that these channels should play by, and really get those channel experiences right, so they make our end users happy, if you will.
Fantastic. There's so much more that we could cover. I think we could spend at least 2 hours on the whole inbound channel topic. We do have 2 sessions coming up, one on June 14th, which is focused on the new web channel, which also goes into the cross-channel orchestration, etc., plays very well with the other channels, as well as experimentation, which is available for all our channels currently. So that's June 14th. And then on June 22nd, and Chetan, you also said, okay, you're not going into audiences. On June 22nd, we will have an additional session for the new audience orchestration capabilities. So if you want to learn more about audiences, that's the session to join us. But we have one more segment before I let you go, and that is so I'm sure there are a lot of apps that support this tip as well. But Jathan, you have different ways to boil an egg, and you wanted to share a good tip.
That's right. So, as a parent, I'm cooking boiling a lot of eggs, and getting the egg just right is a critical thing for me, because if I make a disformed or some kind of a disfigured egg, boiled egg, and I peel it, my kids aren't going to eat it, even though functionally it is the same thing. And so I've tried many, many
Sounds
methods, and
familiar.
the method that really works for me is to take an egg and kind of take the broadside of the broadside bottom of the egg and to put a little hole in it. And there's a lot of science behind it, but ultimately what this lets you do is, if you kind of make a hole and then drop it in hot water, boil it for 6 minutes, you get a perfect soft-boiled egg. You boil it for 9 minutes, you get a perfect hard-boiled egg, and it peels really easy. And so the problem with kind of cold starting an egg is that while you can get a boiled egg done right, the peeling is hard. The eggshell sticks to the membrane of the egg, and that's a pain. But the hole in the shell has really been something that's been solid for me time after
time. And your kids are
Dad of the Year. I'm on the list to win the Dad of the Year award just because of
that. Have you already got them into trying the candy bars as well?
Yeah, that's another topic. I don't think we have time for that today.
Okay, we're at time. Thank you both for joining me. This is a very interesting topic. As I said, I think we could go on. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm sure we'll have another show in the future around this topic. And thank you to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. This session will be available on demand, and keep an eye out for the other 2 sessions that are coming up in June. And join us for the coffee break next week. If you have any questions, anything that comes up, we'll be there to answer your questions. Okay, have a great day, rest of your day, evening. Bye.
Thank